In today's video, I'm sharing 5 habits of very successful and wealthy people. And what I mean by successful and wealthy is not just people who have a lot of money, because there's a way to get a lot of money and still be miserable. But when you're able to get a certain mindset and a success that feels good from the inside out, and then you're able to generate abundance from that, then that's what I mean by these people who are able to really master a side of life and be able to have all the abundance and the wealth, but also the internal peace and joy that comes from feeling an internal sense of success. And so working with a lot of these people, I've noticed that there's 5 habits or mindsets that these people have that all of us can really access, and from that place start to create more success and wealth for ourselves. Just a reminder, hit that subscribe button if you're liking these videos. People who are able to focus their intention on their dreams, their visions, their goals, their aspirations, all have certain qualities. And I think when we learn about these qualities, we can reverse engineer, we can connect to each pattern and habit ourselves, and then we're more likely to find success and wealth on the other side. So the first of these qualities is that they are motivated by failure. So most of us have an actual aversion or fear to failure, that anytime we make a mistake or we fail, it's signifying that there's something wrong in us, that we're not worthy, that we're not good enough. But the people who have managed to create a lot of success for themselves, they don't get as impacted by it. They take failure as a necessary step towards success. They don't let their minds come in and take over. So when we're working towards a goal, we're going to be met with struggle and obstacle. That is part of the way. And if you're moving in that direction, you're going to stumble. And it's when we have that fear of stumbling, that's an indicator that maybe we're going the wrong direction. We stop our progress and we get distracted. We self-sabotage. We do all these other things that take us away from that goal. But people who are really successful, when they're failing, they know they're one step closer. And so why I think this is so important is because when most of us see failure as an indicator that we're not good enough, let failure be a reminder that you have the courage to continue trying. So an example I've recently come into with my own life is doing YouTube, doing more social media. It felt like such an insurmountable problem because I didn't want to show up and feel flawed. I didn't want to make mistakes. I didn't want to feel like a failure. And with a system that is so driven by numbers, it's very easy to see if you're doing well or not well. But what I had to really connect to was that I'm going to fail over and over and over. And if I am just consistent enough, then I'll reach my goal, which is just to be able to help more people and connect with more people. And so that mindset was really, really profound in my next stage of evolution. Oftentimes we stay focused on what we're really good at and we don't do enough of what we're bad at. But if we start to focus on the things that we know we're not good at and we fail often, it takes away the bite. And therefore, we can start to gain that momentum through failure. And so don't let failure stop you. A lot of successful people tend to use failure as a motivator. And so don't let it stop you. Let it motivate you. Number 2, they are able to stay more disciplined, focused, and consistent longer than the average person. So a lot of times when we're trying to reach a goal, we have an idea about how long it will take. And when we're getting impatient, we haven't hit that success point yet, a lot of our actions and our discipline will fall off. So the people who've reached large amounts of success and wealth tend to be able to put their head down and put one foot in front of the other longer. And just that consistency is where it pays off. So oftentimes with clients, I'll talk about a struggle point. And what I think about is swimming out from the ocean. So you're on the beach, you get into the ocean, you swim out. How far away from the shore can you get before you get that sense of fear and that sense of struggle? And you don't know when you're going to reach the other side. But most of us, when we reach that struggle point, That's when the mind kicks up. We get all of these beliefs about needing to turn around, that we're in danger. And a lot of us stop the progress, stop swimming, and we turn back around. But the people who are really able to create like amazing innovations and businesses and lives and dreams for themselves tend to be able to find that struggle point and persevere just a little bit longer. Because how often the obstacle, that struggle point is right here, and then on the other side is the gift, is the success, is the piece that we need to keep going. The truth is, lots of people have ideas about things, but very few actually put in the thought, the plan, and the actions to make those things. And so if you have ideas, I encourage you to really dedicate yourself to being disciplined and consistent, to make a plan, to think a lot about what it is that you're wanting to create, and then put action and execute. If you do all of those things and you continue to be committed to what that goal is, eventually you will get there. It doesn't take a lot of hard work. It takes a lot of energy pointed in the same direction with enough consistency. And that's where manifestation can really occur. And being able to just get out of the head and focus on what you're being disciplined, what you're working towards, where your focus is, that can build you a foundation and a path towards the success you're trying to reach. The third thing a lot of really successful and wealthy people do is that they are so committed to their own progress and self-development that so many of them have mentors, teachers, programs, different things that they invest in to make sure that they're continuing to grow. And if you notice, you can think about the people you're most inspired by. Maybe it's an athlete, maybe it's a business person, maybe it's an influencer, that usually they have other people outside of themselves who are able to reflect to them where they need to improve or how they can more efficiently work. And so being able to have outside perspective is so helpful that most people need mentors. And just because you need a mentor or ask for a mentor or someone to help coach you doesn't mean that you're not good enough. It doesn't mean you can't do it on your own. But when you have someone who can treat you as a protege or have services that you can pay for where they're using their expertise and their ability to see yourself in a more 360 way, they're going to be able to show you what you need to course correct way earlier than you might find it out on your own. And so don't be afraid to invest in your own development. Be able to get people who are really expert at different areas of life and pay for or dedicate yourself to what their expertise is. And then it's going to allow you to grow so much faster. In other words, when we have a structure that is outside of our ego, we end up growing so much faster. And so when we're secluded and we're isolated and we're all by ourselves, that's when our ego can get really, really tricky. And it can kind of create so many obstacles, so many distractions that aren't really necessary. So if you're able to have humility and invest in yourself, have the trust in that investment, you're going to have a path that's much, much easier. It's not going to be without some struggle or without some obstacles, but it's going to be so much smoother. And you have far less chance of getting stuck in a cul-de-sac because you have people on the outside who can help you see the forest through the trees. The fourth thing that a lot of successful and wealthy people have is the tendency towards looking at people who serve as inspiration. In other words, they look for people who are also successful, that they're not looking at the people who aren't. They're trying to find examples that prove to themselves, well, if they can do it, I can do it. And this is such a powerful mindset shift because I think in our culture, there's so many people who say, stop comparing yourself to others. Comparison is the theft of joy. And I do agree that there's an aspect of truth to that. But for me, when I was really trying to grow in my career and grow in my marriage and grow in all these ways, I had to look at examples that showed me this is possible. So if I had someone come sit in front of me and they said, I make this much money. I'm like, okay, it is possible to make this much money. When I saw people who had really healthy, beautiful marriages and were together for 40, 50 years, I said, okay, it is possible. What are they doing? Let me reverse engineer. Let me be curious about it. And so I think we try to protect ourselves by not comparing ourselves, but that's because we're letting the ego take over. But if you're really connected to your heart and your soul and your higher self, and you're able to say, they have something I want, you can get inspiration, you can get knowledge, you can get insight, you can get mentorship from that person. And so, what I've noticed with so many personal clients I've worked with who've really been able to start from one place and end up in quite another, they found examples along the way that showed them what I'm seeking is possible. If we know someone else can attain it, then we can too. I don't care about anyone's situation of how you started. If you have the mindset and you can connect to that place of if it's out there, it's possible. Every one of us has access to that power and that capability of being able to do anything that we want. And if you are connected to it, it doesn't matter where you start. Just stay focused. Find examples of other people who have done it, and you can too. The fifth habit of really successful and wealthy people is that they let themselves have time to dream bigger. So a lot of us are so busy in our day to day, and we're just trying to get from one thing to another that we don't take a step back and really think about our higher vision. And so people who've reached a high level of success tend to have a practice in place where they're actively searching, seeking, meditating, visualizing what it is that is next for them. All of our progress unfolds in chapters. And so we might be at the end of one chapter thinking that that's it. And if we actually take a step back and we say, okay, well, what's next? Let me be quiet. Let me surrender. Let me just listen. Let me be still. Then a lot of time that next chapter starts to take form. And so one of the biggest tendencies I see that stop people is they limit themselves by their belief systems. They say, well, I'm already at the height of where I can get to and there's nowhere to go. There's no growth. I'm already here, so I can't expect that. And it's almost like a way that people protect themselves from the disappointment of reaching far from where they are standing now. If you've been around kids, you see that their imagination is literally limitless. And we all have that ability to be really imaginative and really creative and inspired by life. That there's no end to what it is that we can build and create. And the only limit of that is our actual imagination. So if you struggle visualizing what's next for you, then get more connected to your imagination. Do something that's creative, that's giving you the ability to stimulate that muscle, because it is a muscle that so often we're kind of pushed into these boxes in this path, and we're told you have babies here, you work a 9 to 5 there, save for retirement, and we're not really agents of our own life. But if you're able to step back and say, like, what is it that I want from me that you really feel as like your passion or your why or your mission, from that place, know that every step you take, another part of your path unfolds. And the whole thing's not going to unfold unless you take a step. And so the sky is, the universe is the limit. There's so much we can do. So if you're struggling, start to give yourself some space to actually imagine. Think about the best version of your life. And then give yourself 10 more minutes to imagine even more so. And you'd be surprised that when we give ourselves the space and we quiet the mind, and the mind's not there to create a box around what we think is possible, success can look so much greater, so much more magical, so much more rich than we've ever imagined. So those are 5 habits that I've noticed from really successful and wealthy people. And if you resonate with one of those, start to work on it. Start to focus on one thing at a time. And if you notice you're really, really weak in one, then just start to course correct it. Start to get really connected to those habits. Because when it comes to habits, all of us can build a bigger muscle to be able to maintain that habit longer. And if you're applying all 5 of these to your life and you're really working on all of them, then anything that you dream, anything that you imagine can come true. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.